Hi there, I'm Jenny Kirk and you're watching the Jennifer Kirk YouTube channel, and today we've got a box opening and review and we're going to go over a couple of little goodies that I picked up the other day. So without further ado, let's take a look. Well, I picked up these the other day from a little model shop that's fairly local to here, and it's a model which I've got examples of and have been in the Hornby range for quite a while. Super detail model, and it is a super model. It's the Gresley LNER full brake, but we've got it here in the BR maroon livery, so it's towards the tail end of the careers of these particular coaches. But well, let's take a quick look there. We've got catalogue number R4531 and R4531A. So we've got the initial release and the re-release, which is pretty much the same model, same livery, but with a slightly different running number. I got the pair of them, mint in box, for a pretty decent price. And I think getting the two of them together was pretty good. So it'll go a long way to forming up a parcels train that I've got planned for the new layout that I'm going to be building in the loft. Now let's take a good look at these. These presumably date back towards the earlier period when Hornby first introduced these, because they've got the fairly low catalogue numbers, but I stand to be corrected on that, as normally happens. But in fact, I'm going to take them both out of the boxes initially, so that we can take a good look and compare the two of them. They're pretty much the same livery, so there's no sense in hanging on the second one, because I know it's going to be pretty much the same as the first. We don't have any of the accessories that would have come with these, things like the close coupling packs or anything like that. They were secondhand, they were a good price, and quite often with some of these super detail Hornby items, you can get yourself them at a much more affordable price by shopping around, looking out for them coming up secondhand, as was the case with these. Now, livery-wise, I'm going to go over some of the liveries that these have been produced in. Now, Hornby were very much credited with some of the finest applications of the original Teak livery, and I've got here one in the LNER livery. This is how they would have first appeared in the late 1920s into the 1930s, and they would have run like this right through into the BR period. And what we've got is these very heavily varnished and finished teak wood finish. They really do look exquisite. And I actually use these to run with a lot of my pre-grouping locomotives because they really do look the part with their white roofs. They very much are of the halcyon days of interwar railway travel. I'm going to put that out of the way, and I'm going to show you the next livery that they appeared in. And this, to the casual observer, might look pretty much like a slightly dowdier version of the last one I showed you, and you'd be largely right. We've got the grey roof instead of the white roofs, and we've also got the changing colour on the underframe detail. But you see, it's the early British Rail period. So this is the livery that they would have appeared in from probably around 1948 through to the very early 1950s. So there's quite a narrow window of opportunity for this livery to be correct. Now, Hornby came in for a lot of criticism when these came out with the finish of the tampo printing. So if I bring back into frame the rather exquisite one, we can see that the finishing of the panels is much better. And the reason for this was that when they first brought them out, there was somewhere in the region of 30 different unique passes for the tampo printing to be able to get this very good simulated wood grain effect. When they came to produce these as a cost-cutting exercise, because labour costs and production costs in China had gone up, what they chose to do was to reduce those number of tampo printing passes to try and keep in check the cost of these items. The end sum is that actually they kind of failed a bit. It looks like the entire side of the coach is drawn from one piece of teak wood, and actually that wouldn't have been the case. In real life, each of these panels would have been a different piece of teak wood with a different grain, as we can see on the older 1930s liveried example. Right, moving on into the later BR period, these coaches were then released in the blood and custard, the crimson and cream livery, and I've got here an example. I've got quite a few of these. These were very, very popular. They're kind of more fitting with the cycling lion period of BR. They then moved on to the examples that we've got here that I'm doing this review on, which is this all over crimson livery. It's a little bit dowdier, but actually it does look quite good, and it does make the trains easier to keep clean. The lighter coloured top panel would probably be quite difficult to not let look grubby. So we've got the all over maroon there. And then a final livery, which Hornby have produced at least one example in, is the blue-grey. Yes, some of you are nodding along in agreement, and an awful lot of you are going, wow, I didn't realise that they lasted long enough to receive that livery. Some coaches did. Most notably the buffet coaches, and the reason for this was that in the Mark I rolling stock building programme there was a shortage, at least initially, of an adequate number of buffets. So some of the ex-Gresley coaches were pressed into service, repainted to match the rest of the rakes, and carried on until the sort of later 70s, I believe. So an awful lot of the surviving Gresley buffets that you see in preservation today probably at some point or other carried this livery. Now, there were also departmental uses for coaches. Hornby haven't produced any liveries of that. And also this full break, I have seen photographs of them in an all-over rail blue livery. Again, a livery which Hornby have not yet, to the best of my knowledge, produced. And it's also the case they probably won't, because the blue-grey buffet that I showed you a little while ago didn't actually sell awfully well. It was very, very expensive for its time. I believe it came out somewhere in the region of £44, which for a standard blue-grey coach, it was actually really, really expensive. It was in the region of double what other blue-grey coaches were appearing at from the likes of Bachmann. So it wasn't that successful, and I think Hornby are on record as saying that with hindsight they wouldn't have actually produced that livery. But these were very, very successful. So let's take a good close look. We've got a pretty accurately finished body side. It's an almost windowless finish. We've got these top windows up here, nicely produced, so there's no interior in this coach to speak of. And what we've got is an awful lot of wooden sides. In the Teak livery, certainly these were probably the most expensive for Hornby to do the finish on, because there's such an expansive bodywork. But in liveries such as the all-over maroon, it's probably a lot simpler for them. We've got a band of lining down the middle, and I'm looking very closely at this. It looks pretty crisp. We've got some very, very fine edge to that lining. It sort of follows the body side demarcation between this vertical panelling and the horizontal panelling, and it sticks to that pretty well without much, if any, hint of sort of bleed over onto the other panels. In terms of other detail, we've got this kind of brass colour on the door handles. That's pretty standard across the range. I'm looking closely there, and I could be wrong. They do look like, are they separately applied? They don't, actually they look like they're moulded on, but they're actually, I mean, this comes back to a lot of what I say about these. If the detail can be done moulded so fine that you can't tell whether they're separately applied or not, really it is, that's where design clever is good. And Hornby, I think, made a mistake of making a big thing about design clever back when the 42XX, 52XX and 72XX locomotives came out. Actually, this is design clever at its best, producing some of this finely moulded detail in a manner that actually doesn't detract by being moulded on. We do have some separately applied detail in the form of these handrails we've got there by the guard's compartment door. So we've got some vertical handrails and also some horizontal ones there as well. The ducket too appears as though it might actually be a separately inserted detail, and we've got all of the glazing, including this very, very fine glazing on the ducket, is absolutely flush finished, and that is exquisite. That is something that we've come to see a lot of from the likes of Hornby, but back when these coaches were first introduced, that was quite a new feature. In the underframe detail, we've got a lot of separately applied stuff going on there. We've got these footboards here. We've got some pipework as well, which is pretty finely applied there, separately applied detail. The underframe detail as well is pretty good. you can see some notches in the underframe, and that's for the underframe is common across all of the different coaches. So that's to allow Hornby to put the different accurate underframe detail on there. And it really is a lot to say that if I pick up at random one of these other coaches and show you the underframe, we can see there the differences between the different coaches with the battery boxes that are fitted there. And if I pick another one, we can see there again slightly different underframe detail, and that really is good attention to detail from Hornby. The bogies themselves, they're fitted with a close coupling mechanism there. You can see that the coupling self-centers and draws back into the middle, and that is really so that on fairly tight curves the coaches would follow more closely together without running the risk of buffer lock on tighter curves. The wheels there are metal disc wheels, very, very finely finished, pretty free running. And the bogie itself, we've got brake blocks that line up with the wheels and a lot of separately applied detailing, as well as, actually, it has to be said, stuff that is part of the moulding, but again, designed clever, done where it really is good to do. It's turned out pretty well, and you have to struggle to see that it's moulded rather than separately applied. If we look at the end of the coach, we can see on the end there we've got a separately applied, very finely detailed corridor connection. They are solid, but they're not too obtrusive, and we've got the rendition of the door within there. On some of the other liveries, it has to be said, the door is picked out in a slightly brighter colour, so you can see there's actually a lot of detail in there, which isn't necessarily brought out with the darker colour. The ends of the coach are prototypically finished in the black as opposed to the body sides. The sole bars there, all in this nice clean black. There's no real crossover between the two different colours. Nice to see, very crisp demarcation. And the roof is finished in this darker grey. It's the same colour grey, it seems, as some of these other liveries, but what's interesting is, with the maroon, it does look darker until you bring one of these coaches right up next to it, and it just shows how the eye can be quite easily fooled by adjacent colours. The torpedo vents on the roof are really, really nicely moulded. In fact, to the point where I think they are separately applied details, but there's no sign of any glue issues, and certainly they're really snugly put in there, so it really is nicely finished. The rest of the roof itself has this nice, smooth, almost a satin finish effect. We've also got really, really fine rain gutter strips along there, and they really do feel very, very fine and well detailed. But they're not fragile as well, and that's an important something to note, is that these Hornby models are very, very well put together. On the ends there, we've got sprung buffers, something that for those of you who like to keep with prototypical workings, they're pretty nice, although it has to be said that they don't protrude further than the corridor connection, so it's not clear how they would work in practice if you did want to prototypically shunt these with more accurate couplings. Other details of note, well, we've got these very, very fine below the sole bar steps there for the guard to get in, same on both sides. Really, there isn't much else to say, although we've got the coach is actually correctly handed, and this is something that I should point out. If we look at this side, completely smooth, no duckets, but we turn it over and we've accurately got the ducket on the other side. So this coach is not just a mirror image of itself. Hornby is tooled up accurately to represent the two different sides, and that really is something worth noting. All in all, it must be said that this is a really welcome addition of livery to the Hornby range. It's been out for some time now, but only now have I been able to pick up one for my own collection. It would run equally as well with a mix of Mark I coaches in a similar livery that would have been used by British Rail, probably for things like pigeon specials, newspaper trains, parcel trains, rather than being a part of mainstream locomotive hauled passenger stock. That said, during the summer months and on things like boat trains or holiday trains, it may have been the case that one of these would have become attached to the train for holding the extra luggage that would have been expected. So, after all of that, the package has to be said that it is probably a good solid 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. The other coach, I must take a quick look at this. It's pretty much as the first coach. There's nothing extra to be said about it. Identical in every way except for the running number that we've got very finely tampo printed there. We've also got a little bit of lettering there about load distribution, just to give a demonstration to the people using the full-size one of how much you could put in here and how to distribute it. But it's really nicely done, very crisply done, and this pair will make a fine addition to any parcels train. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video and I hope it was informative to you too. Don't forget to like this video, very, very important, and also share it too. And that way you can let other people know about the good work that we're doing here on the Jennifer Kirk YouTube channel. And, well, subscribe as well to the channel and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. And until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying thanks for watching and take good care of yourself. Bye for now. Today's video was brought to you in part with the generous donations of those who've supported me on Patreon. A big thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson. If you want to see your name in lights, then pop on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knob T. Mouse. Thanks and catch you later.